the recent battling has been horrifying. For instance, last night, I'm sure you were experiencing this in real time too, a pitched battle at a nuclear power plant. In fact, the largest in Europe. That was an exciting Thursday night. A fire had been set off, actually, caused damage to a training facility just 1,500 feet from one of the plant's 6 nuclear reactors. There was also damage to the quote structure of the reactor compartment at one of the reactors, which did not affect the safety of the unit. Thank God. Zelensky said Russian tanks are shooting at the nuclear blocks. These are tanks equipped with thermal imagers, so they know what they're shooting at. They have prepared for it. Our boys have always kept the nuclear plant safe. We made sure no provocations could happen. No country has ever shot at nuclear blocks except for Russia. First time ever. Now, apparently the fighting around it has long since stopped. It apparently is in a safe spot. The fires have been contained. There is apparently no leak, at least according to them. The Russians now obviously in control, but very worried about, like we knew the threats of nuclear war coming from Russia, horrifying. The fighting around Chernobyl, a reminder that there's other ways that we could face some sort of annihilation. Then they decided to have a battle next to yet another one. I think if we could just back off from all the nuclear stuff for a little while during this conflict, I think a lot of people in and outside of Ukraine would really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's they recaptured Chernobyl, but one Chernobyl wasn't enough for Putin. He wants to create 2. Yeah, there's all this news that's coming out about how this version of a nuclear power plant is less likely to suffer the scale of damage in the event that the things that were possibly going to happen did in fact occur. So that's nice, but no one wants to see the headline that there's a fight at a nuclear power plant.
No.
And then the question is like, what does Putin want to do? Does he want to annex this? Would he want to rule over the ashes? If he orders a freaking hit on a nuclear power plant, the answer to that question is yes. And so when Tucker Carlson asked me what I don't like about Putin, can I submit this? Like hating gay people and locking up gay people and shooting nuclear power plants?
Yep.
I think that's a problem.
The invasion, the targeting civilians. He asked a really dumb rhetorical question, and we're all in the process of answering it. Well, that was one hit that you identified. Other hits apparently keep coming because now, at least according to the official government word, so always grain of salt, including governments that we support, both in terms of diplomacy and also perhaps our feelings at the moment. But Zelensky has apparently now survived 3 separate assassination attempts in just the last week. We had reported on one earlier this week. The assassination plots were apparently foiled when anti-war Russians fed intel to Ukraine about 2 separate mercenary groups that planned to launch the attacks. There's still more than 400 Wagner Group members. That's the group behind the first assassination attempt we talked about. There's still a number that are there. They apparently infiltrated Ukraine with a kill list of 24 officials whose deaths would cause chaos in the Ukrainian government. So obviously every day scared, not only for the ongoing violence, but the specific targeting of the government via airstrikes as well as these mercenary groups. Also, another reason to be a little bit worried. It's like a reason for a little bit of optimism, but also the opposite. So a lot of people outside of Ukraine want to help. Some Ukrainians that have lived abroad have been returning to help. Others are going in to help where they can. Zelensky said that the first of 16,000 foreign volunteers were already on their way to fight alongside Ukrainians. So that obviously, that might make us feel good that people are standing in solidarity and even being willing to risk their lives, but they will be risking their lives because a Russian Defense Ministry spokesman said, "I wish to make an official statement that none of the mercenaries the West is sending to Ukraine to fight for the nationalist regime in Kyiv can be considered as combatants in accordance with international humanitarian law or enjoy the status of prisoners of war." He warned foreign nationals, quote, "to think a dozen times before traveling to fight alongside Ukrainians." And so maybe the approach would in fact be exactly the same, or maybe they're implying that they're gonna be even more free with God knows what if they capture or engage with these foreign volunteers. What are your thoughts, Brett?
I'm not sure anyone, when they volunteer to go fight in a war that is not in their country, I guarantee they're not like after the 11th time when they rethink for a 12th time, they're going to change their mind. This is just like, all right, a lazy thing for the Russian government to say. Like, you think a couple times. You think twice, think 3 times, think you go to 12 times. And much like Russian novels, there's too many pages in that book.
Oh my God. Yes, it's like the threats about nuclear war. They're doing bad things, but on top of that, they know that we're worried about their capacity for absolutely barbaric violence, and so they are commonly using that to threaten absolute barbarism. In any event, those are the significant updates as of when we're recording this. We're going to be keeping an eye on it.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.